Masechet Zevahim Daf Amud Aleph, 3 lines down. Rameir Resh Lakish Al Me'ohi Ben Midrash. Resh Lakish was laying on his stomach in Ben Midrash. That's what he used to do. Umakshini asked the question: Im kishirim hem yirasin yirasu. Im en yirasin lamba ba'in. This is 1 second. If the korban's kasher when you do it to the wrong owner, then why doesn't the guy get kapara? And if it does not get kapara, then why does it still work as a korban? The Gemara says, "Amar lo Rabbi Eliezer ben Sinu in la halmita." We see cases where the korban is brought after someone died. Shani kshirin be'enu nesin. They don't get kapara, but they still accept it at the time. Mishnah says, "Ha'isha sheviya hatata mita." The woman who gave birth and next she has to bring a korban. She brought a hatat, then she died. The aviru shin olata. Her children can bring the olah for her. Olata umeta. If she bought her olah and died, lo yavi yerushin hatat. They don't bring her korban hatat. Why? We see she doesn't get korban. She doesn't get kapara afterward. Gemara says, "Amaleh modina lach be'olah." I agree by going olah da'ati lach hatat that they can bring after the guy dies. Ashum gloti lach milan. How do you know that korban asham, which cannot be brought if the owner died? How do we know that you can still bring the korban afterward? The Gemara says, "Amaleh harem machlotecha besido." You have someone who supports your opinion. The Tanakh says that he argues, and then for Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer says also Hashem is pasul to bring afterward. No, that's not the point. Rabbi Eliezer is a great man. Of course, he's a great man. Which Mishnah, complete Mishnah, would say that it's asur and you're bringing one opinion? Where it says, okay, fine. Lakish answers his own question. Let me basically support myself. With proof from the pasuk that we said it prior as well, that if the korban is performed for the wrong reason, it's still kasher, like we said earlier, because it's considered donation. It's either Hanaf, Rish Lakish wasn't sure about an Asham. Because you don't bring it after the guy dies. However, may I see the Talmud and bring that pasuk of the pasuk in Masechet Tech teach you that you can bring it as donation. Imma habab b'neder and dvar le'etiv lo l'resu Hashem lo tikla. But sounds like a promised korban where we say that if you vow it can be done as donation after the guy dies. That's fine. Maybe a korban Hashem should not be brought at all. The Marshan Rish Lakish me'ach havatar. Rish Lakish brought a reason from this pasuk. V'shahat otah le'hatat. Otah lishma kishra shlo lishma pasla. It's only kasher without lishma. Hashka lishim shlo lishma kishrim, but other korban that are not done lishma, it's mutar. Yachol rasu, maybe you might think they bring kapara. Masechet V'teicha, for the pasuk mentions the concept of Masechet V'teicha that is considered donation and not kapara. Be'ema haba b'neder b'davar la'ati v'lo l'resu. Maybe you say, okay, fine, a korban that's brought as a vow or a donation should be brought as a korban, but they don't get kapara. Hashem marsin amilasa, but an Hashem should get kapara. Where it says, Hashem you can't say that Hashem brings kapara kavachomer Allah because he brings a kavachomer from Allah. Uma Allah she'ena mer kapara and mer tzed. It's not going to allow. It does not get. There's no kapara in that regard. It also doesn't get considered acceptance if it's for a different korban. Hashem shemechaper and then she says of Hashem, which is supposed to be for of mechaper that person. If for sure she's not going to get any kapara. Says Allah is different because it gets completely burned. Maybe an Hashem won't be as strict and it does get kapara. The Gemara says shalim yochihu, the proof of shlamim that shows that it has to be burnt is not a critical proof. Right? The shlamim doesn't is not completely burnt, and we see that it's also not getting acceptance. The Gemara says that 1 second, but shalim is also different. You can't bring that as disproof because shalim is different. You need the wine libations, you have to wave the chest and the thigh of the animal, like we mentioned prior. Gemara says, okay, but the Allah is different as well. Allah doesn't need these things, and he still does not get kapara after death. Rather, if it wasn't lishma. Okay, fine. The argument keeps on going. Each one has its own factors. What's the common denominator? If it's slaughtered, they're kodshim, and if it's slaughtered for not the right purpose, it's kasher, but in medicine, they don't get kapara. Therefore, I'll bring the asham as well. Shehu kodesh, kasher, if it's slaughtered. That if it's slaughtered and brought for the wrong purpose, it's kasher, but anyone says there's no kapara. Gemara says no. There's a different common characteristic that they're all considered korbanot of the community, and therefore it doesn't apply to an Hashem because Hashem is a personal korban. The Gemara says, the korban does a fact of a korban that disproves that of those factors. Why? Because that's a personal korban, and uh, and if you bring it low shma, it doesn't count. One says, okay, fine, but that's also different. The korban is also different because why? It also it always brought with 40 breads. So therefore, maybe that's why it's different. The Gemara said, "Ola shlamim v'chichol." Shlamim are also different. Doesn't have the breads. The Gemara says, okay, fine. You know what? Again, the chazar din lorik zeger zev lo krizeh. Again, there's no common denominator. There's no. Each one has their own factors. The common denominator is the Olah Shlamim and Tudah is their Kodesh, and if you slaughtered for not the right purpose, it's kasher. But anyone that said does not bring kapara. Avanei Avi Hashem, therefore I bring the Hashem as well. Shehu Kodesh v'Kodesh lo Yishma b'kasher. Anyone said must be that the Hashem as well is Kodesh. If you slaughter, it's not kosher. It is kosher. Sorry, even if it's not the right purpose, and it's not bring kapara. The Gemara says not shehen ba'in b'neder dvar. 1 second, you can find a different common denominator. The Olah Shlamim and Tudah can be brought as a vow or a donation. That's not applicable to a neder, an asham. Gemara says, okay, fine. This is the law. The Torah compares the asham to the shalim. Ma shalim shehin kodeshim mishatan shloshim kodeshim. Just like the shalim, if it's kodesh, and if you slaughter for not right purpose, it's kasher. Imen atzin no kapara. Afani asham su asham shu kodesh. Also kodesh, and not if it's not done for the right purpose, it's kosher, but you can't get kapara. The Gemara says, okay. If you're just bringing hekesh comparisons, make a comparison to hatat instead of the shlamim. And then it's completely basul. Gemara says, the Torah said by hatat otah, the only time it's completely pasul, if it's not for the right purpose, is by the hatat, that's a gzira zakatu. Okay. Siman hekesh basar. Yativ Rav Huna Rav Nachman Betiv Rav Shishik Bayo Be'advek Amre. They were sitting and saying, Kasher the Rish Lakish, Hashem, Rish Lakish was talking about that. Hashem has the problem, Lo'ati la'ahamita, because you can't bring it after the owner dies. Lema let Azar, the Rish answered him, Hashem nami la'ahamita, but and Hashem is brought after the owner dies. The Torah says, Amar Rish Shishat, Hashem my karev. He says, 1 second, why are you bringing it? Lemotaro, just because it's money. You're bringing the value of the korban. You're not actually bringing the korban Hashem. Hatanami mikra karva motaraz. In the case of hatat also, you're also bringing the value. It's not an actual hatat. Hatat regarding hatat, afagad karva motaraz, even though you're bringing the value. Miyad rahmanahu, the Torah excludes it from bringing offered if it's not a korban hatat from the word it, the word ota. Therefore, you can't compare hatat to Hashem. The Gemara says Hashem namik tibe'ahu. Hashem also says who. So maybe also we can complete the pasuk if it's not for the right purpose. The Gemara says, "Hahula achar who the pasuk is referring to." That part of the pasuk is referring to after the burning of the part that has to be burnt. The parts of the korban has to be burnt. Therefore, you can't learn for the asham to teach you lishma. The Gemara says, it says, "Aval asham lo nemar bahu achar burning who has more kasher if the korban is kasher even if you didn't burn it at all." Okay, so why do I need the word who? It doesn't teach me that. The Gemara says like that. And Hashem had been sent to graze, which means it. If let's say the guy died or he burned a different Hashem instead, you send that animal to graze till it dies. And someone slaughtered it with no intention. Kasher is kasher as a korban olah. The Gemara says nitaki. It sounds like only if you send it to graze, it's a good olah. Lo nitaklo, but if it was not sent, it would not be. My time, why? A makrahu. We have to. Yeah, it seems like only in its original condition the Hashem has to be uh um if the only it's an original condition it has to be done. And therefore if you do it for the not the correct purpose, then it's pasul. The Gemara says we see that korban brought after the owner dies. They're kasher even though they don't bring kapara for the guy who died. Then Lakish should answer him that the korban should be brought and he has kapara. Why do you assume that there's no kapara? The one says you let it even though 1 second. How come the children give kapara for their father? Let's say the mother had to bring a korban for childbirth, right? And they bring a kapara to get kapara because she may have said something while they're in childbirth, she swears, etc. She'll never do it again. So that's the case, then how would the sons get kapara? They didn't give birth. Gemara says, okay, malti rabba say, man lemenon de ika v'kama asay gaba lo min kapara. The cave and the he ika kama asay gaba min kapara. V'sher na min kapara. 1 second. We know that if you bring a korban for an olah, you get kapara even for many things they may have done. And therefore, when the children are getting kapara, they also may for sure did avirot, and therefore they should be able to bring kapara for themselves and their mother. The Gemara says, the children are acquiring the animal that the korban that they inherited. If someone left a korban mincha for his two sons and he died, it's brought as a korban, and there's no such thing as partnership. Usually, a korban mincha can't be brought as a partnership. Visa that kind of, if you want to say this, it's an acquirement. Nefesh, that's one person. Seemingly, they do not acquire the korban. What's the Lokani? One second. How do you consider they're not acquired? But Rabbi Yochanan says, someone died and left a korban animal to their children. They can bring as a korban, but they can't do timura. We mentioned timura as substituting an animal that was hekdesh. So you can't. You're not allowed to do it. If you do substitute it, both animals are kadosh. But we see that you can't substitute it because and we'll see now. If you do acquire the korban from and through inheritance, that's why you can't do timura. The have the shutafim considered partnership. Shutafim lo ma'aseh b'marin, and partners can't do timura. Because in the no acquirement, and muram limited, they should be able to do timura. Or it's like fine. Shani Hatam, Tamar Kra, the pasuk specifically mentions in that case that if you substitute your chayav, that about the orders to include even the case of inheritance. Had memir ve'echad ve'en memorin teach you that inheritor, one child can do timura, but two can't. Okay, maskif the Rav Yaakov min nahar pekod el that's the case. Gabi ma'aser the pasuk says by ma'aser sheni. If inga or iga double are shown like we had by the case of timura. That about the orders to include the inheritor. Achinami had go and was also but there we're limiting it to one, not two. Our pasuk said one, and therefore only one, not two, and over here as well. And shani. This is shani maaser is different. The gabe avuhon nami itel bishtu because even the father could have had a partnership in the maaser shani. Therefore, the children can as well. But regarding the korban, they can't. The father couldn't, and therefore the children can't as well. Okay, and where it says, from that pasuk we see that the children acquire the korban. If they're acquiring it, that's why one guy can do timura, even though illegally. If say it's not able to do, not acquired, how can you do timura? Someone makes hekdesh of something, and he wants to redeem it, you have to pay the value and 20% fee. And the guy, the recipient, is considered the owner in regard to Timura if he wants to substitute his Hayav in Timura. And if someone sets aside Tiruma for his friend's fruits, Tovat Hana'ah Shelo, the benefit of giving that Tiruma, it belongs to that person, right? There's a benefit. There used to be a benefit. I want to give my Tiruma to my favorite Kohen. Whether you could get something out of it or not is discussed in Rashi and etc. However, regardless, we see from here that only the person who can get kapara from the korban can make timura. Therefore, if one inheritor, one child who acquires it, he can do timura. It must be that it's a complete acquirement of the korban. The Gemara says there's two different types of kaparas, and we're going to talk about both soon. However, what we say that the korban does not get a regular kapara. It's a secondary kapara, not a primary kapara, it's a secondary kapara. We'll see soon about that. Hashem in the upcoming. Amen.